In northern Ontario, they call this season Benakwe Gizis, the falling leaves moon. For the people of the Nibinamik First Nation, it's a time to recover from an awful summer. A power outage that spoiled everyone's meat, a wildfire that forced mass evacuation, 2 youth suicides, and several more attempts. One emergency after another. It's worn out Natasha Sugarhead. But she's lived her whole life with a more chronic problem, the state of the community's homes, which is shameful.
It's like, it gets depressing, right? It's depressing to see the house condition like that. It makes me feel disgusted, actually. Like, how can we live like this? Yeah.
This is a story of a First Nation, like so many in Canada, with a housing crisis, trying to take back power over how they live. Housing wasn't always shoddy in Nibinamik. When about 100 people settled here in 1975, they built log homes themselves from trees harvested here. But a huge forest fire in the 90s forced the community to turn to the government for housing support. New houses have been few and far between. The community estimates 60 new homes are needed.
So this is where you're living now?
Yes, for the time being.
This is what Victor Neshinapes and his family call home.
Here, me and my wife sleep here, and sometimes my youngest child here is 8 years old. He sleeps in the couch, sometimes on the floor here. And here on this room, I have my daughter and her boyfriend and my grandson. And then on the other room there, I have my son and his girlfriend.
8 people in a 1-bedroom apartment.
When everybody's in here, it's like we're ants.
Well, this is the whole space of your home right now.
Yeah. Yes, for the time being.
They'll live this way for a year and a half while they wait for their house to be renovated.
When the house shifts, the logs shift with it. It creates cracks on the walls of the house, and during the winter you can feel drafts going through the houses.
Construction materials are pricey here. They get shipped in on the winter road or by air. The band's meager annual housing budget of $300,000 doesn't go far.
There's never enough money to renovate houses here. And the renovation itself, it takes a long time because we don't have very much skilled carpenters.
Signs of improper construction are everywhere.
It's always like coming from here.
So nobody ever sleeps in here?
No, because of the draft, it gets too cold.
Morgan Sophia's family moved into this house because their last one had no running water or toilet. But problems here are legion too, like this treacherous stovepipe.
I'm scared to keep the fire going at nighttime because I'm scared it's gonna come off and maybe start a fire in here.
But this is your only source of heat, right?
Yeah.
But there's not much space there left for him to sleep, eh?
Yeah, I wanted to put a bed in here, but there's like no space in here.
No.
Some houses don't have running water, and it's just not built properly. That's what I noticed with my house too. Because some of the corners, there's no cover there.
Not only is there a lack of clean water and sanitation, some estimate every house is mold infested. Natasha Sugarhead's home has holes in the walls, literally.
You can see this here, and that's where the cold air comes in.
Oh, this is where your mom sleeps.
Yeah, it's really cold. It's like you're in a fridge or something.
She worries how the cold impacts her mother's health. As depressing as Natasha finds the state of housing in Nibinamik, moving away is no solution.
This is where I belong, and this is where my heart is. I get homesick when I'm out of town too. Like, there's nowhere else I can call home but here.
Still, she, like most youth here, have little hope of getting their own home. The wait list is 10 years long. In the past, the band's own mismanagement of funds was part of the problem, but the current chief, Johnny Yellowhead, blames Ottawa for stalling over land designations that would unlock more housing funding.
We don't get that much resources to repair or fix the houses. Only we do by, like a priority list. The people that are, really sick or people, especially elders,
Yet money alone isn't the solution. Last year, the Department of Indigenous Affairs came up with funds for 3 new duplexes, $1.4 million, but on its own fiscal deadlines. This is the result. Materials that arrived without construction contracts lined up now sit deteriorating.
It gets really frustrating that you have to meet certain standards that you have to qualify in order to get funding. That's what we try to explain to the ministers after ministers. It's always a bureaucracy that comes to our table.
But someone new is coming to the table, asking, what would it look like if the people of Nibinamik had the power to choose how they want to live?
So how many community engagements did you guys initiate when you guys...
I think it's probably almost sort of like 3 major groups a day for 5 days, so about 15 per time. So
Sheila McCartney heads a team of urban planners from Ryerson University who are helping the community create a housing plan designed by themselves, not Ottawa bureaucrats.
And that's been a long time coming. Yeah.
Hopefully soon.
Yeah.
It's way different than the approach in the 1960s, when new houses came with an instruction book. How-tos on everything from sleeping and cleaning habits to dining etiquette.
the house is a physical manifestation of colonial policy. And to me, if you are going to give people an instruction book on how they should live, they obviously weren't involved in the choice. It's completely against their culture, because if not, they would know intuitively how to do it.
McCartney, also an architect, maintains reserve housing has been a tool to assimilate Indigenous peoples. Options limited to cookie-cutter designs like this one, titled Indian House Type 5, best suited for suburbs in the South, not people who live off the land.
But design has been used here in a way to control a population and force them to live in a certain way. I mean, if you look at these homes, none of them have outdoor space. It's because it's not funded. People are forced to live in a certain condition around their homes or build within a very, very tight timeline, again, because of the funding and the sort of external ways of control. So if anyone was being controlled in that way, I think that you would have an issue, a mental health issue, a feeling about your growth within the community.
The community's mental health, the daily strife and stresses exacerbated by abysmal housing, can lead here. It's where Mervyn Sophia is buried, 15 years old, and he killed himself last year. It's why his mother, Morgan, will never turn her back on Nibinamik either.
I don't really want to leave.
Why not?
Because I'll feel like I'm leaving somebody behind. I don't even know what.
She was studying to be a social worker when it happened and hasn't been back to school since.
It's been hard, and like sometimes I don't have the energy to get up every day and do things.
In Natasha Sugarhead's home hang 3 pictures, her brothers, who all committed suicide.
When more people that I love went, the more pain built up in me. Change needs to happen. I'm 22 now, and it's like I still see no change.
1251 is my Hinga radio station.
However, change may be in the air.
Design your community the workshop. And
At the radio station, the call is out to join a new housing discussion.
Come on in.
For the past year, the Ryerson design team has met with community members, over 100 so far, Today, it's with school kids.
Popsicle sticks, I'm gonna show you.
Oh, to make stuff, right?
Yeah, so do you guys see the big map?
Yeah. Oh, we're making the community.
Yeah.
Where are you? I remember we're gonna need one for right here for the porch.
We'll do that in all of the boxes though, because the porch isn't as big as that.
Where is it that you live?
The goal to hear what kinds of houses they need and want,
Which one is your house? Where do you live
to
here?
reimagine their community by building model homes.
They will have had personal input into them, and they themselves are going to feel differently within it. Rather than someone from outside coming in and taking a house and just dumping it in the community, they'll get to pick where it goes. They'll get to lay it out exactly how it is. We'll be able to use the resources of the sun and the wind to be able to have those homes be heated and ventilated differently.
What you want to do is you want to make it how you think it should be. Okay? And so,
Can I do this one?
yeah, of course you can. Make it exactly how you would want your house to look. Okay?
The power of design to allow people to vision of how they want to live, and then they begin to imagine themselves within that home and get to have the choices within that. That's the powerful tool of it. This is a base of your house, and you can add pieces to it, make different roofs to it.
What do you like about that house? Is there something on this house that you would put on your house?
This one.
That one can be your
Right? I'm kind of making this house a bit like the one that you liked.
Are we gonna put some trees near your house? Okay, well, let's get some green and cut it. Are you gonna have a chimney in yours?
It's not so powerful, though, if paper models don't turn into actual houses.
Quentin and Jaden look good. Is this Windows house? Where's Windows house?
The hope is this community-driven housing policy translates into long-term commitments from Ottawa. Rent-to-own financing is also on the table. It all takes time.
Maybe we can approach it from if there's anything you'd want to change about it.
It would help a lot if we had a porch and more room for my living room and my kitchen.
Should we build it? We have all the materials over there. Okay, so
For Morgan Sophia and her family, this may be a fun exercise.
and so is this the addition that you're building? After we build this, we can talk about what the inside would look like too.
But it's still just make-believe that doesn't address their needs for homes, modest as they are.
It's right here.
There are, of course, more immediate concerns in Nibinamik, putting food on the table.
The bottom's so cold. It's almost like a lot of pieces.
During moose hunting season, community gathers as it always has.
Teach me how to do it.
Yeah.
You're getting a hang of it now.
They gather around the fire, generations intermingling, sharing the wealth of the land. It inspires Natasha to dream.
My dream, I like to see new houses, to see this people that are there right now. It's like, it's a happy feeling, like they put behind their problems and just keep going forward and stuff like that.
What if this happiness, culture, history was reflected and reinforced in the design of houses? What might the future hold for the people who have always, will always, call this place home? Duncan McHugh, CBC News, Nibinamik First Nation, Ontario.